Hello everyone, today we're gonna go over what's the fastest way to gain MMR in Dota 2. So, you might think this question is really subjective and depends a lot from person to person, and yes, while that is true, there are a lot of hard facts about MMR that I think a lot of people ignore, and there is quite a lot of interesting math behind it. So that's what we're gonna go over today. But if you for any reason absolutely hate math, I will have a timestamp for the conclusion in the description. But I highly suggest you watch the entire video, because it's gonna make a lot more sense then. And also, before we begin, if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments, and if you feel like subscribing, go ahead, no need though. So, let's get into it. Okay, first of all, we need to make sense of the MMR and the ranks in Dota. Okay, so you already know this, but there are 8 ranks in Dota: Herald, Guardian, Crusader, Archon, Legend, Ancient, Divine and Immortal. But again, you already knew that. But what you might not know is the distance between these ranks. So one thing that actually kind of surprised me when I looked into this was that the distance between all ranks is essentially the same. Pretty much, I mean like plus minus 1 MMR, but essentially it takes the same amount of won games between Herald 1 and Guardian 1 as between Divine and Immortal. So, to make sense of that, we need to switch our focus from MMR, matchmaking rating, to win rates, because it just makes all the calculations a lot easier, and I think it's a better mindset to have when playing. So let's focus on win rates. But first of all, we gotta look at what's the difference between, let's say, a 55% win rate and a 65% win rate. So let's say you have a 55% win rate and a 60% win rate. Like, what's the difference between these? How much faster is it gonna be to rank up with a 60% win rate compared to a 55? So the simple calculation you can do in your head at any time is just to remove 50 from both of these. So 55 minus 50 is 5 and 60 minus 50 is 10. And here you have what I like to call the positive win rate numbers. If you have a win rate below 50%, don't worry, we'll get to that later, but for now we just watch along. So anyways, what's the difference then between a 55% win rate and a 60% win rate? Well, you gain MMR twice as fast. So, the difference between a 55 win rate and a 60% win rate is the same as the difference between a 70% win rate and a 90% win rate. Twice as fast. So, we will get how to apply this later on, but let's go back to MMR for just a second. So, MMR, the thing you probably care about since you're watching this video, comes from 2 input factors. You can see it as a kind of magic machine with 2 inputs. There is activity, which is how much you play. It's pretty self-explanatory, and then there is win rate, which we have just talked about a bit. So activity, as I said, pretty self-explanatory, really simple. It's just how many ranked games you play a week. And win rate is also pretty self-explanatory, but unlike your activity, you can pretty much actively affect this behavior, because your activity is probably pretty set in stone, depending on how you feel and how much free time you have. But your win rate, you can actually affect that. So for most MMRs and most brackets, the best way to affect your MMR is by affecting the win rate, because honestly that has a much bigger effect on the MMR than the activity, and I'll show why right here. So let's go over this hypothetical example. We have a guy, he plays 3 times a day and he has a win rate of, let's say, 54%. This is, I think, pretty average for people climbing. Not that high, not that low. Okay, so let's say this guy wants to double his MMR gain each week. So he can either increase his games to 42 games instead of 21, which is a huge difference honestly, twice the amount of time spent, or increase his win rate from 54 to 58. That's the same difference, because you're doubling the positive win percentage. And I think I can ask pretty much anyone, and they'd agree that it's a lot easier to go from 54% win rate to 58 than to go from 21 games played a week to 42. Because again, as I said, your activity is pretty much set in stone. and honestly, doubling your activity is a lot harder than doubling your positive win rate. As you might already know, you can gain a pretty sizable advantage even before the game, just by knowing a few things. Let's head over to the meta page of Dota Buff and we'll go over hero win rates. So, as I said earlier, the difference between each and every extra percent you get above 50 means a huge deal when climbing. So, one thing you might have already thought of is, wait, why don't I just play heroes with a higher average win percent than 50? And that's honestly a great idea. Just go and have a look at Dota Buff or any other like meta page. Select your lane and just have a look. So, I play quite a lot of mid right now, and the smart decision for me to take if I wanted to climb would be to play Magnus, Zeus and Klinks, because these heroes all have win percentages over 55 and they have decent pick rates. So honestly, these would be the current best heroes to spam for mid in this current patch. And you know, just by picking the right heroes to play, you can gain a huge advantage over other people, and you will climb basically automatically if you're just average. That being said, I actually don't play any of these heroes. I mainly play Storm Spirit, who has a win rate below 50%. And you might be asking, why am I doing this if I want to climb? And the basic answer is, I don't really want to climb right now. I just want to learn the hero. And you know, I'm not saying it's impossible to climb with a bad hero, but it's gonna be a bit harder. But honestly, I'm honestly not in a rush right now to climb, so I'm fine with playing a hero that might not score me as many wins as a hero that is really meta this patch. So I wrote a little calculator to calculate the amount of time it would take to gain a certain amount of MMR or gain a certain rank. And it's in the description. You can just copy the page and you'll be able to edit it and input your own numbers. But anyways, let's just have a look at how it works. So let's have a look at this calculator. So let's input my numbers just as like a general example. So for me to get to Ancient, which is my goal, it would take me about 2330 MMR to reach Ancient from Crusader 1, where I'm at right now. So I'll input my activity as well. I think around 21 is pretty accurate for me right now. I play on average maybe 3 ranked games a day, and my win rate is about 55% right now. And then the calculator spits out a number, which in this case is 44 weeks. That's about the time it's gonna take for me to reach Ancient at this rate. And of course win rates change, you might play less one week, you might play more, but it's just a general guide, which might be useful to some people. So let's talk about win rates. So of course you wanna reach the highest win rate possible, I mean, of course, but I would actually categorize it into 5 different brackets of win rates. And you might think, hey, why not just put it into MMR brackets or ranks? And it's because, let's take an Ancient player who has a 50% win rate and an Ancient player who has a 60% win rate. The advice for those 2 players are gonna be a lot different. So let's get into the actual advice. So bracket number 1, less than 50% win rate. Honestly, there are 2 main reasons why you could be here right now. No shame about it, by the way, I've been there as well. Either you're learning a new hero, which is honestly fine in most cases, but you know, just don't beat yourself up for it. Because honestly, if you want to practice a new hero in ranked, you're most likely gonna drop below 50%, at least for that hero this month. But if that's not why you're below 50% win rate, you need to change things up. You know, either switch roles or ask for some replay analysis in the Discord below, because honestly, in this bracket below 50% win rate, there isn't much advice I can give you, because it varies a lot from person to person. But this is not a place you want to be in, unless you're learning a new hero or trying a new role or something like that, then it's completely fine. So the next bracket is 50% to 52% win rate. So this is the most common bracket, but don't worry. I mean, if you play a lot of Dota, this is a really good bracket to be in. You will need around 1500 games to rank up a medal, and that is a lot of games, but it's not awful if you play enough. My main advice to someone between 50% 50% and 52% win rate would be to just specialize in one hero or at least one role. And you know, if you just learn a meta prominent hero, you'll be able to reach the next win rate bracket without much work, if I'm being honest. So the third bracket is 52% to 57% win rate. And honestly, this is where you should lie if you're actively trying to keep your win rate up. Just playing average with the correct hero should land you in this bracket. And you know, in this bracket it takes about 300 games to rank up a whole medal. And you know, if you're right here, then honestly just keep playing, you're doing things right. And you know, the best way to climb faster when you fall into this win rate is just honestly to play more games, enjoy the game, because you're gonna climb. And finally, we have the above 57% win rate bracket. This is the bracket you should be aiming for. If you have this win rate, you are objectively better than most of your MMR bracket, since pretty much no heroes have that high win rate by default. Honestly, if you're here, your main goal should just be to keep the win rate up, because you are gonna face a lot stronger opponents. And you know, don't get discouraged if your win rate falls a bit, because that's gonna happen naturally. And it will only take about 200 games or so to rank up a whole medal if you fall into this bracket. So basically, good job, well played. Oh wait, there is one more. Above 70%. This is a bracket very few people even see, and even less touch. It is mainly filled by smurfs, but under very rare circumstances you might be able to reach this bracket. If you're here, you will literally fly up in MMR, because you've done it, you've officially broken Dota. If you just play 5 games a day, you'll climb one medal every other week if you're in this bracket. But again, you're only gonna reach this bracket in very rare circumstances, so honestly I would just pretty much ignore it, unless you really like playing cheese heroes mid. So now we're gonna answer some questions that I got from people in the Discord linked below. If you have any other questions that aren't mentioned here, feel free to ask them below in the comments, and I promise I will respond to the best of my abilities, of course. But let's start with Amon. So, should I try new heroes even if the heroes I'm playing still work in my bracket? And again, it mainly depends on 2 factors. First of all, what win rate are you getting with the ones that work? If it's above a 57%, I would honestly recommend just keep doing what you're doing. But if you keep playing the same thing and don't focus too hard on improvement, you will pretty soon plateau in win rate, since you'll of course face better opponents, since you'll climb a bit in ranks. And the second factor that matters is what is more fun to you. And you know, this might sound a bit stupid, but let's say you're spamming Drow Ranger, having great success, but you're not enjoying it. Then you're gonna reduce the amount of games you play, and thus you'll reduce the MMR you gain each week. And I think a lot of people actually forget about the fact that you actually need to spend some time learning Dota, not only trying to climb MMR. I'm sure someone could climb insanely high for their skill by just becoming an expert in one hero, for example Phantom Lancer or something like that, but honestly it's somewhat a short-term solution, because later on you're probably gonna have a tough time if you've only experienced one hero. So to summarize, basically, do what's more fun for you, it doesn't really matter. So question number 2, how do I rank up even if I cannot play a lot, let's say like 2-3 games a day max? So the short answer is 2 to 3 games a day is sufficient to rank up. It's enough. You can climb to Immortal by just playing 2 to 3 games. Long answer, if you want to climb fast or reasonably fast with only 2 to 3 games a day, like me, you need to have a high win rate, around 57-60%. And this might seem difficult, but honestly it's something you should aim for whenever you try to climb. It is high, but it's not impossible by any means. If you manage to get a 60% win rate, then it will only take about 9 weeks to rank up a whole medal, which is really quick considering you only play 2 to 3 games a week. And finally, we have a question from Bronx Inborn. He asks, when Valve starts a new medal season, when do you think it's better to calibrate? Right away? Waiting a bit? First get used to the patch and then calibrate? Solo? Party? Thanks. So, a friend of mine, I guess you could say a former coach who was immortal a while back, answered the question for me. And he said, I think if you play a lot and try hard, you should calibrate right away, as there is no excuse to not gain as much ranked experience as possible. If you're more cautious, then wait at least a week so that others figure out the meta for you and you can just adapt. So, my take. As he said, it depends a lot on how much you play. Let's say you play right away instead of waiting a week and you lose a lot of them. Well, how much win rate / games played do you need to catch up during that week? Well, about 35 games a week with 60% win rate, which is hard to do, but remember those numbers are only if you manage to lose the majority of your calibration games. If you manage to win more than half of them, then you should calibrate right away if you think you can do that. Otherwise, I would just wait 1 week so you'll be able to more securely secure 5 games at least. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have reached the end, which is quite rare by the way, only like 10% of people watching reach the end, then I congratulate you. If you have any questions, again, just ask them and I promise I will answer them. Every single one. It can be as dumb as you want it. You can call me whatever you want, I'm gonna answer the questions. But, you know, I've been kinda inactive, but I'm gonna become a lot more active right now. My goal is to reach 100 subs, just to be able to secure a custom URL, which will kinda set my channel in stone. But anyways, again, if you enjoyed, feel free to like the video, subscribe, I don't know, do whatever you want, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!